Welcome to our Purpose podcast. We are People and Purpose, dedicated recruitment professionals with deep roots in the HR community. We're here to help you prioritize people, along with a connection to your purpose. At People and Purpose, we believe that fulfilled people make successful companies. We're redefining recruitment by leading with purpose and empowering candidates and employers. We know your mindset matters, and once you master it, you can change your world. You can create the life you desire, build a successful career, and connect with your purpose for yourself, your family, and your community. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. You're part of a community of like minded individuals striving for personal and professional growth. Through our online courses, career coaching, and this podcast, we'll help you experience more freedom and fulfillment. Join us as we delve into a wide range of topics around generalist HR, L&D, Rem and Benz, industrial relations, OD, change management, HR technology, recruitment, and much, much more. By connecting with us on LinkedIn or Instagram, we'll keep you updated with new HR roles, thought leadership posts, industry discussions by subject matter experts, and updates on the HR market. There's always something new and interesting to learn with us. Subscribe now to invest in your future and career today with People and Purpose. And if you think anyone might enjoy this podcast, please share away. Hi, everyone. Everyone's still logging on. Hope you've all had a good morning. Hi, Jason.
Hello, Emma. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, it's now good afternoon. It's 12:01.
Dang it. Good afternoon.
Clicked over. So we've got a few more people logging on, but people are coming. So Jason, welcome. Everybody that's here already, welcome. And I'm sure that you'll find this very insightful. I was very excited you're joining us today for what will be somewhat enlightening. Like, I think that a lot of the time when you're doing interviews, you think that, yes, it's common sense, but sometimes it can go out the window because you're a little bit comfortable and you've got that experience, but you don't necessarily know how to sell it. So this webinar will definitely build your interview skills. And, at People and Purpose, we always strive to make sure that we bring the expertise from our network that can empower you to build knowledge. That's our purpose, and that helps you find greater purpose in your work. And that absolutely includes landing the right role. So I'm Emma from People and Purpose, if you don't know who I am. But today we have the pleasure of hosting Jason Ajay from Interview Fit. So Jason understands a fundamental truth that many job seekers face. And as I said before, it's not usually a lack of knowledge or experience that holds them back, but rather the challenge of effectively communicating and selling that experience. So Jason dedicates his work at Interview Fit to helping job seekers like you, or people that refine your interview performance, optimize LinkedIn profiles, and craft compelling CVs. So his goal is to equip you with the confidence to clearly articulate your value and ultimately land those coveted job offers. So what's more, Jason also works extensively with talent acquisition teams and hiring managers. So this unique perspective means he has an insider's understanding of exactly what employers are looking for and what truly distinguishes top tier candidates from the rest. So with our combined expertise, People and Purpose's understanding of the broader talent landscape, and Jason's deep dive into interview dynamics, we're bringing you this webinar specifically designed to help you. So during our session today, we'll be covering some crucial areas. And when you see them, you'll think, as I said before, common sense, but believe me, we have seen and heard it all. So this isn't just theoretical advice, it's real practical insights gleaned from both sides of the hiring fence. So join me in welcoming Jason this morning. So we're eager to dive in and help you unlock your interview potential. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box and we'll be attending to those at the end of the webinar. So make sure you stick around to the end so you can ask those. But Jason, I'm handing it over to you.
Thanks, Emma. I am super excited to be here today. Just buzzing at the prospect of speaking to you and to your audience today about some of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace at the moment, and importantly, how we can help them get ahead. The point you just made, actually, about some of the parts that they will see in this session that will just be common sense. I find myself feeling quite often like the garden designer to gardeners.
Yeah.
So I'm advising people that create these beautiful gardens for other people all the time. I'm advising them on how to create their own garden. And it's interesting in that a lot of the people I work with in the talent, people and culture space, HR space, or other job types as well, seem to have forgotten some of the small bits and pieces that actually make them so great at what they do, and forgotten how to sell that in an interview. So I see my role a lot as a coach and advisor, and a trainer, but also as a bit of a confidence booster.
Yep.
You know, there's almost this byproduct of what I do, which in helping remind people of the extreme value they've brought to businesses throughout their careers, they kind of recall all this confidence and all this belief that they have in themselves, especially if they've been out of work for a while.
Yes.
Um, so I'm hoping to bring that to today's discussion as well.
I love that. Yeah, being able to show people again or hold the mirror up and say, look at the great things that you did, because it's easy if you've gone through a redundancy or you have been out of work for a little while, even on a sabbatical, to be able to communicate that, but then also recognize the impact that you've had previously. That's a really cool part of your job.
It is a cool part of my job, and I love it when I see those aha moments, those lights go on behind the eyes of the person I'm working with, and they go, shit, yeah, I am really good.
Yeah,
Really
100%.
good. I have done some fantastic things. So that's what I'm hoping to bring today. You had mentioned the fact that we want this to be super practical. I'm very much a practical guy, so I
Yep.
really want your audience to walk away with some tips and suggestions on things that they can do.
Yep.
Um, and I might just bounce into the agenda and what we're going to try and cover.
Perfect.
So I'd love to give people an understanding of the mistakes that I'm seeing people make on a daily basis at the moment. I'm working with job seekers at all levels from all different role types, and I'm seeing some really common mistakes that certain people are making, mistakes that can be omitted and will help them get forward. I'd love to give you people an understanding of what employers are looking for. As you said, I kind of sit in the messy middle. I kind of sit in the space between, I work with job seekers and people that are out of work or on transitioning to new roles. And I work with organizations that are looking to train their employees on how to better welcome their future people into their business. So I get insights into both worlds, and I'm hoping to show your people what employers are looking for. I'm going to give you some real world strategies and practical tips. So some things that people can walk away today with and just start to implement. And then there'll be an opportunity, as you've said, throw your questions in the chat, ping Emma throughout the session. You can ask me anything. I will try to the best of my ability to answer your questions today. If I can't answer them today, promise to come back to you within a fairly short period of time.
Perfect.
If there are three key takeaways I would love you all to walk away with today, they would be the ability to nail your pitch, the ability to understand how to prepare your assets and make them attractive and engaging and market ready, and an understanding that every single conversation you have is an
Yes.
opportunity to make an impression. I
Perfect.
think this is something that you and I spoke about the other day, Emma, in that, sometimes we miss the mark and we think a coffee chat is just an informal coffee chat.
Yep. Yep. I've seen that it has, like, even at the third or fourth stage when you think you're just meeting someone on a friendly basis, like, you have to treat it as an interview because people have fallen down at that stage. So that's really important.
Yeah, it's not the time to drop the baton, as it were. It's the time to kind of keep on sprinting to the finish line and to make sure that you secure the role that you probably desperately deserve and probably really need as well.
And invested time in.
And have invested time in, absolutely. So without further ado, mistakes that people are making. And I'm just going to run through these and throw it up to some conversation. We know that 47% of candidates are failing job interviews as a result of having insufficient knowledge about the company. Obvious, right? But we're talking about things like looking at the company website, things like looking at their LinkedIn profile, things like looking at the LinkedIn profile of the people that are interviewing you, looking up financial reports, looking for latest news articles. These things are super important to your job search and will make you stand out. And I see this a lot, Emma. I'm not sure if it's something you see as well, but I see candidates sometimes using interviews as a forum to practice. So I'm going to have 1, 2, or 3 interviews in the hope that by 4, 5, and 6, I'll be better and I'll nail it. Is that something that you see?
Yeah, not so like we're lucky that we don't, but we hear people talking about it. So, like say for example, where we started working with someone and they said, "Oh yeah, I've gone for a couple of interviews and they were like my practice interviews or things like that." But we make sure that, like when we're working with people that we coach them like you do. But obviously, sometimes it doesn't always go through.
I love that. And I look, I would expect, and I'm sure of nothing else, I do see people that are using interviews as a forum, a live forum to practice. And interviews are so hard to come by. You've invested so much at that point to get through the process, to get in front of somebody.
Yeah.
It's not the time to practice, it's the time to actually nail it. So,
No,
um,
and you never know who that person knows.
yes,
Because if you are using it like a practice and they're talking, like people talk, we're human beings. So you've got to be careful in that respect too. Industries are
yeah,
small, especially where we are.
especially where we are. The old unofficial reference check or just checking in on this, those conversations happen all the time. So one of the mistakes we're saying, as I said, it comes down to people not doing the homework and not doing the prep. And I've talked about getting around that. One of the phrases I've heard through the years as a recruiter, which kind of sets the hairs off at the back of my neck, is I've had a bit of a look at the website, and it sets the hairs off the back because it's normally after I say, "What have you learned?"
Yep.
Normally the response is actually not a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's not a phrase that I see as particularly strong. I would be advising people to dig in a little bit deeper than just a cursory glance at the website. You know,
100%.
news articles, YouTube videos that the CEOs put out, last year's financial reports. Bring that information into an interview. It will absolutely make you stand out. And the subliminal message you're telling the client and the company is, I'm invested. I want
Yeah.
this role.
Yeah.
Let's keep interested.
Yep.
We're seeing people display low effort in how they show up. I suspect a part of this, and I'm keen for your thoughts. I suspect a part of this is that people are just feeling a bit beaten up. And sometimes when they're walking into an interview, they're already feeling, well, I've had 6 or 7. How is this going to be any different? And they're not bringing that energy and that enthusiasm, that excitement.
Yep.
It throws it off. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even interviews, say with recruiters, they'll treat it differently to a hiring manager. Don't do that because I mean, it's just as important as being in front of the company.
Recruiters are your friend. They are your friend. They are your ticket into the organization. They've had a relationship with that organization for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, please turn up. Please turn up with energy and engagement. It's going to help you. I see this often. People that go off the reserve during the intro. I had
Mm.
an instance years and years ago. Quick story. I had a guy. I was working on a role for a BA, and a guy come in for an interview. And he came in and he was wearing a great suit, nice tie, beautiful hair. And I'm thinking, this is going to happen. This is going to be fantastic. We're about 2 or 3 minutes into the conversation, and I asked him a question. It was a fairly inane question, but it just went off the reserve. I
Oh,
can't remember what he said, but he just started speaking, and I pulled him back after a few minutes, and I said, "Hey, look, the reason I'm asking you questions about your background, your experiences, because I need to make sure that it aligns with the experience that the company's looking for. So that's why these questions." And he said, "Yeah, no, that's okay." He said, "But if they want a killer, then I'm a killer."
oh, yeah, okay.
And I'm like, "What?" He said, if they want somebody that just had playground fights, then that's not me. You know, I can do anything. I can get the job done. I was trained in the army, and I kind of had to say at that point, this is not going to work. You
Mm,
know, keeping in mind what it is you want to say, saying that and moving on is really important when answering questions and when moving into that intro phase. We're seeing quite often that people are describing achievements that are hard to follow, especially in HR, people and culture and talent acquisition. Your achievements need to align with the company strategy.
yes,
And statistical information is really important in demonstrating and proving success. You know, so your achievements should be stories that have a start, middle, and an end, and that end should be sprinkled with gold dust. You know, it should highlight all of the beautiful things that you've done.
yep.
Uh,
Data.
data. We'll talk more about that in a minute,
Yeah.
in a short while. I'm huge on stats, facts, and figures, and we'll talk more about that in a short while. Too much we and not enough I. Look, I love people who are collaborative and want to work with us. I think that's a great trait to have. But in an interview, the person that's interviewing you is looking to understand what you've done, what your
Yep.
contribution is. And so being mindful of talking about what I put into this role and what I delivered versus what my team delivered is a really, really great way of setting the two distinctions apart.
Absolutely.
Um, is this one you're seeing? Can't articulate continuous learning and a commitment to growth.
Yeah, I think, especially over the last couple of years, we've found that it's taken more of a backseat. And I think that's because of the nature of the way the market is at the moment and businesses are. They're very focused towards compliance and risk rather than the L&D and the continuous growth. I think that people are following suit, but if you can set yourself apart with being able to talk about that, wow, like that's an edge.
It's a game changer. You know, I've often seen people who come in with the same skill, same background, same experience, similar profile, and candidate A can talk about how they've remained committed to their own personal development and continuous growth,
Mm,
and candidate B can't. And I will always prefer candidate B because candidate B is delivering value to that organization on an ongoing basis, whether they're paid to or not. They're
yep,
invested in their own learning. So being able to articulate this, I think, is a really it's a really big differentiator in an interview. Missing opportunities to ask intelligent questions. How often do we see this? You know, you get to the end of an interview
yep,
and, and the interviewer asks, "Do you have any questions?" And you either say, "No, I'm good, thanks. You've covered everything," or you say, "Can you tell me about the culture?" Or what are the office hours? Or it
yeah,
sounds
sounds really mundane. Yeah, yeah,
it sounds again like mundane stuff, but you know, intelligent questions tell the subliminal message you tell your interviewer when you ask a smart question based on something they've said during the interview or on a piece of research that you've uncovered is, I want this job.
yep.
I'm invested. I'm intelligent. I'm listening. I'm engaged. So asking
True
intelligent.
critical thinker. Yeah. And go in prepared. Like prepare some interview questions or some questions, sorry, beforehand. And one of those questions will probably relate to what they've said.
100%. Look, I encourage interviewers to go into an interview with a list of questions and to have them. There's nothing wrong with turning up with questions to ask at the end of the interview. One of my favorites, for instance, is so you're asking a hiring manager towards the end of the interview. Your question is to the hiring manager, what if you were looking back on this role as being a huge success in 12 months' time?
Yep.
What would I have achieved at 3, 6, and 12 months?
Yep.
And so you're forcing the interviewer to think fast forward about what does success look like. But subliminally, you're telling them, A, I expect to get the role.
Yep.
B, I expect to be good.
Yep.
But C, how will I know when I'm being fantastic? Those are
Yep.
great messages to send. So asking intelligent questions, again, is going to set you apart. Um, Bombing the remuneration conversation. Look, the cost of living is crucifying most of us. It's really, really tough out there at the moment. And at the point when you're about to ask for 150K or 200K, if you are nervous and unconfident and unassured, the likelihood is that you are going to be offered less money. And that's a crime shame when you've
Yep.
proven yourself right the way. So being prepared to answer this question, knowing how to structure a response, knowing how to not justify based on, well, I know the market's paying this, or in my last role X, or whatever it is, being able to deliver a short, succinct, confident response, I think is a really, really important thing.
Yep.
So on the other side, what are employers looking for? Are there any questions from that first start that I need to answer?
Not yet.
All right. Study by LinkedIn found that the top 3 factors that negatively affected a candidate's ability to make a positive early impression were poor hygiene, an unkept appearance, appearing disinterested, unenthusiastic, and showing up late. This is all stuff we know.
It's all
But
common, as we said before. Yeah.
are we still seeing people do this?
Yep.
Early impressions are super powerful. Look, in the second part of my work where I'm coaching talent acquisition and hiring managers, I encourage them not to write people off for something they've seen in the first few minutes of an interview. That is not the way to approach hiring. But early impressions are powerful, and if you leave a negative one, it's very, very difficult to recover.
Absolutely. I also remember early in my career when we were going through interview coaching, it was always, the interviewer will, like, they're either confirming what they thought in the first, few minutes, or they're like trying to find out whether they were right, like obviously finding out whether negative or positive, their first impressions, they're trying to confirm those. So your ability to show up well in the beginning just makes such a big difference to the way it's going to play out.
It really does. It really does. And this is fixable, right? This is one of those things that you absolutely can, as an interviewer, you absolutely can fix and throw a spotlight on. So with that in mind, I'm a big fan of show rather than tell. At least
Yep.
I like to think so. I've collated a number of videos of candidates in real life interview situations that are answering questions and performing in an interview in the early stages. And I wanted to give you your audience a view to see what the two ends of the scale looks like when it comes to people turning up and people showing up for an interview. So I'm going to play these for you.
Yep.
Caveat here is that all of the candidates have been asked permission for me to show these clips.
A good
And
spot.
I will just start them here.
Term is there proprietary asset. Actually, I'm using my tablet, so it's the first time I actually ever used Zoom on my tablet.
I have notes. Can I read from here?
That makes me dizzy.
Yeah.
He agrees.
Sorry, mate. I'm just moving around.
Okay. How often do we see something like that?
Yeah, or in the car. No.
It's just, look,
And the moving around, I can't deal with that.
we are human, and there are things that happen at times, and I get that, and I think everybody is going to give you leeway to an extent for that, but you can set yourself up.
Yes.
Especially if you know you've got you can set yourself up. Sitting in a car is not the way. Walking around a room is not the way. Turning up in an hoodie for an interview for a it's just not appropriate. So
Like Crocs in the office. No Crocs in the office.
there's no need for it. There really is no need for it. So on the other end of the scale, these are what I think are some really great examples of people showing up in those early stages.
Yeah, so I can take you through what I did.
Okay.
With him. So I basically said I've been in the project space since 20.
So I'm relatively new to Australia. So I've been here for about 8 years. I was born in the Soviet Union and raised in Israel. I live in suburban Melbourne, in the north part of Melbourne.
I start, and really within that, specializing in kind of navigating that really complex intersection of people, right? Customers, internal stakeholders, and technology. Kind of that messy middle where they collide.
So I would ask then, keeping in mind we don't want to write people off, would you be more inclined to spend more time with one of the last 3 people as opposed to one of the first few?
Absolutely. And it's engaging and it helps you to craft questions moving on too.
And the difference in setup is not much.
No.
You know, the last 3 people that haven't done much, you know, throw on a virtual background, put on a collared shirt, sort out the right lighting, you know, sort out my framing. They haven't done much, but it makes a big difference. It has an impact. So let's kind of dive into how you can bring that into a discussion. Employers are looking for people that are well prepared and have got a professional presence. So all of the things that we've just seen in those last 3 clips, they're looking for people that are engaged and receptive to open dialogue, you know, eye contact, nodding, smiling, answering questions, bringing high energy. These things are super important in an interview. We know that interviews are a power play. We know that. And candidates know that in that power play, especially in the early stages, you know, of an interview process, they don't have much power. And that can cause us to be nervous and to waffle at times. And that's okay. But in those important moments when you're asked a question, employers are looking for you to organize your thoughts and organize your responses and calm yourself down. So a big key takeout for this is to just take a deep breath, have a glass of water, whatever it is, but compose yourself. Think about how you're going to respond to a question.
Absolutely. And on that, one of the questions that have come through actually is, can you ask for time, or what do you think about asking for time before you answer a question?
I love that question. I love that question. Look, as a recruiter, I did a lot of interview prep, which is probably why I've built interview fit. I saw the process of fixable. But one of the things I say to job seekers is you absolutely can ask for time, and you should. So there's 2 ways of approaching it. You can either say, hey, thanks for that question. I love it. I've got a great response. Can I just have a moment to formulate the right answer? And can we come back to it?
Yep.
Yeah. Or you can say, just give me a second. And then hang in the pause, hang in the space, take 2 or 3 seconds. Think about, again, the subliminal message here is I'm confident, I'm calm, I'm poised, I'm assured. I want to give you a great response. So I'll just sit in the silence for a couple of seconds and think about how I'm going to answer you. But it's a great question, and yes, you should, and you can.
Absolutely. Because sometimes if you don't ask for that permission or the space, you start to waffle, and that's your thinking time, which takes you straight off track.
So, and then you get lost down the beaten road, and all of a sudden you're talking about, you know, some inane topic.
Yep.
Employers are looking for clear, compelling, and tight pitches. You know, I do a lot of work on pitches with the people I'm working with, and actually working on their career pitch is the place that I start. It's where my program begins for 2 reasons. One, because once we have that and I have an understanding of what that pitch looks like, we can use that pitch for their about section. We can use it in parts of their summary. They can use it in their interviews. Your pitch is not going to change from interview to interview. Over the next 5 or 6 interviews, your pitch is likely to stay very similar. You're going to nuance it, but it's going to stay very similar to what it is. The other reason I start there is because it starts to rebuild that confidence and that belief. By forcing you to go down that memory lane of the things you've done, people are starting to recall, actually, yeah, I've delivered this value. Oh, and I did this. This was really hard. And I worked with these teams. So clear and compelling type pitch is a really important factor. Can demonstrate values alignment. Is this something that you're seeing quite a lot at the moment as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like values and culture obviously are at the forefront at the moment because it flows through everything. So normally people, when they do the pitch, it's all around numbers or, you know, their history or the titles they've had, rather than being able to say how their values align with the different organizations and where they're moving.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think there's two answers when it comes to, I think there's two responses, two grades of response. Well, there's a third, but that's the lower end and we don't want that. The two higher grades of the response are, the first is I can articulate what your values are as an organization. That's great. For me, that's a tick. That's a 7 out of 10. The second and the really great response is I can articulate what your values are, but I can demonstrate how they manifest themselves in my own life. So as an example, you know, if the value was empathy and care, and I said in an interview, look, I demonstrate that value in my own life because at the weekend I volunteer at food trucks and I make food packages for the homeless and then I go and deliver them. You're telling me that you're living and breathing our value.
Yep.
That's a brilliant response. So
Yep.
thinking about those values, A, being able to respond to them, B, thinking about how you can describe examples that tie in with them. That's what employers are looking for.
Yep.
Have and can describe relevant key skills. How often do you see people that clearly have all the skills needed for a role, but they just for whatever, they just can't describe them?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like, going back to the we and I part as well, some people think that it's not, they try to be too humble and they say the we, but they can't articulate where they sat in that decision making or the process or, you know, any of those areas. So it's really important that you're able to do that.
Super important. Displays of growth mindset, learning agility traits. You know, this is kind of what we talked about a little while ago in continuous learning. It could be that an organization today, I'll use a technology example because it's easier to come to me at the moment. It could be that an organization has lost a developer today, right? And they're hiring somebody to refill that role, but in 12 months, they need that person to be a cloud engineer. So how are you responding in an interview to a question about continuous learning and growth mindset that tells your interviewer that you are going to be a cloud engineer? You've got the capacity, you've got the interest, you've got the desire to be that in 12 months' time. So for me, that comes down to talking about your education, talking about the courses that you've been on, talking about certifications, talking about conferences you go, podcasts you listen to, webinars you attend, people you follow, you know, Udemy courses that you go to, Coursera courses you go to, but also then talking about what your future learning is going to look like. I'm actually booked into a course for AI. It starts next week. It's being run by Udemy. It's a 3-month course. That to me is a fantastic answer. It tells me what they've done in the past, what they've done more recently, and what they're going to do more in the future. That's somebody that's displaying those growth mindset and learning agility traits.
Absolutely.
Expectations align. You know, again, this seems like an obvious one, but walking into an interview, knowing very clearly that I want either a work from home or work from the office or blended environment, knowing exactly what my worth is and what my dollar amount should look like, knowing what my responsibilities are and what I want. Organizations are looking for people that are clear on those things and are not trying to negotiate after the fact. Reverse engineering never looks good, does it?
No, definitely not.
And then if you are interviewing virtually, we've talked a little bit about this, clear lighting, good framing, suitable setting, and audio appropriate. These things in isolation are small. When you plug them all together, what happens when an interviewer comes into a virtual interview, they see you bright-eyed, you know, framed well, audio is appropriate, settings, they see the first impression they have is this person looks fantastic, they are good to go. If they see you sitting in a car or moving around or dogs barking in the background or what, it doesn't land well.
No.
I think there's one more on here, but I can't see my screen because the bar at the bottom is in the way. What does it say?
There's nothing there.
Okay. All right. So those are some of the things that employers are looking for. I can see there's a couple of other questions. Is there anything we need to answer before we move
Well,
on?
I think that we should wait till the end, because there's a few questions here that will actually be answered in the next part. So otherwise, don't worry, we'll get to them by the end.
All right. So career pitching. Let me start out by this. One of the things that I tell people that I'm working with is that the next person hiring you for a role is hiring you for the things that you have brought to the table in the past 3 to 8 years. And so you want to focus on that in your pitch. If you start from 15 to 20 years ago and take 2, 3, 5, or 8 minutes to get to this bit, the bit that I'm interested in, you have lost me.
Yeah.
I'm no longer interested. So serve this up first because that's relevant. If you are at a director or executive level, yes, touch on what you did 15 years ago because it goes to bolstering your experience today, but that's not where the focus should be. Point I'm making here is pitches for me, I believe, should start in reverse chronological order.
Yep.
I again want to give some examples here of what I've seen in terms of some great career pitches and the other end of the scale. The caveat I will make here is the first 2 or 3 that I'm going to show you are people that have not been coached. So they're coming in dry, and I'm asking them, describe your career as a background, describe your career as a summary, or tell me a bit about your background. The last couple that you will see are people that have been coached, and they're starting to put that pitch together and starting to frame it well. But let's just give you an overview of what it could sound like.
And really enjoyed the organisation and the culture, and also learned a lot about program management. That was my first real dive into program management, and I felt that I learned the roots and all of program management there.
I'll just keep rolling through.
My career summary, I would say that I'm someone who really thinking through what problem I want to solve. And by changing countries for 3 times, I realized that problem could change, evolving according to the time and place. But I've seen significant impact for finance.
This is what I've seen a lot.
You have a bit of an accent. So obviously, I did not born in Australia. So I came to Australia in 2000.
So there's 3 examples there of pitches. What are some of the things that you've taken from that, Emma?
Well, the first one, I didn't know what he was talking about. Second one, you had no idea about her experience or the impact that she's had, or even the types of work that she's been doing. And then the third one, obviously, gone down a rabbit hole somewhere.
Got lost in her own story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's look at these for another view of what it could sound like.
Fantastic. So my HR career has spent 20 years now across a variety of industries, including trade unions, not-for-profit, and the disability sector, as well as private equity-backed healthcare. So the last 8 years, I've been in head of HR or CPO roles, where I've led the HR function across all areas, and that includes talent acquisition, business partnering, industrial relations, which has included agreement and enterprise agreement negotiations, remuneration and reward, payroll, work health safety, and HR systems, operations and technology. So the full gamut that you'd expect in a true HR function. It's also included full accountability of the HR function budget. I've comfortably managed HR budgets of up to $1 million in organisations with revenue of $150 million turnover per year, and headcounts of up to 1,200 people.
Just going to stop it quickly there because I just want to make a quick point on this. That pitch was about 40 to 50 seconds. And I'm just going to ask the audience to just think about what are the key stats, facts, and figures that came through. What stuff was evident in that, and that was the same time period as the first guy. But just think about what you took out of that. What did you learn? Let's show you this one.
I've been in the project space since 2013, so just over 10 years. And in that time, I've had a number of roles, including project coordination, program coordination, in PMO coordination, and project and program management.
Yeah.
Across a number of industries such as the financial services, government, and education, so higher education. I use Sprint and Agile delivery to efficiently manage and execute projects, just to make sure that there's a balance between structured governance and also being able to flex enough to meet project goals and adapt to changing requirements. I've successfully led teams, that probably next time, up to about 10 staff, and SMEs up to about 40, and managed budgets up to about 10 million. My specific responsibilities cover stakeholder management and engagement, scheduling and resource management, procurement and contract negotiation, which is always fun, your standard reporting, vendor relations, governance, change management, and comms.
Thoughts, Emma?
So great pitches. So when you put a pitch together, what is it? Length of experience, industry, skills, level, so responsibility, and then at the end, impact.
100%. Yeah, and I will show more on that in just a second. Absolutely right. I just want to pick up on something that the last lady did there. She kind of fluffed the lines at one point and kind of giggled. We're human.
And that's okay.
We will make mistakes. And that's totally okay. In fact, if you turned up and delivered a perfect pitch, the person that you are delivering it to will not believe it. It will seem over-orchestrated, over-engineered, unauthentic. It's okay to fluff your lines. It's actually very personable. So I love the fact that she did, and that she acknowledged it with a giggle and then just moved on.
Yep.
But how do we take it into an interview? Yes, time frame is really important. I reckon you've got a couple of minutes. I reckon you've got about 2 minutes before you start to lose the audience, unless you are a fantastic storyteller. So keep it tight, keep it clear, keep it concise. Help the listener quickly grasp the number of years experience that you have, the role types that you've held, the industries that you've worked in, the team sizes that you've been responsible for managing, the budgets that you've held, and the specializations that you've had. And if you can do that in about 30 to 40 seconds, it's not a lot of time, it's doable. But if you can do that in about 30 to 40 seconds, you're winning.
Yeah.
Interviewers are asking questions. So from the moment you walk in the door, your interviewer is asking questions inside their own head. Can this person manage this size of team? Are they going to be comfortable in budgets? Are they going to be comfortable in a culture like this? Are they going to be They're asking questions. The quicker you can start to answer those questions and then eliminate them from the equation, the more likely it is that you're going to progress through the process. When you go to a fancy restaurant, right, and they the waiter brings out one of those, those nice serving plates and puts it in front of you, and it's all these beautiful little snack bites, right? Think of your pitch as a serving plate. You can't get everything on the plate. So get the best bits on and have your interviewer go, oh, that's fantastic. I want to ask more questions about that. Oh, that sounds really interesting. I want to ask more questions about that. If you think of it as a serving plate and you try to just put the best bits on, I guarantee your interviewer is going to want to ask you more questions towards the end. Include short form achievements. So we're not talking about, a 2 or 3 minute dialogue of the biggest, which we're talking short form achievements. You really just run into the ends, the stats, facts, and figs. In 6 months, we delivered a new HRIS system which improved our operational efficiency by 30%. It came in on time and under budget by $150,000, and we've improved our employee engagement scores by 20%. Brilliant. Short form achievement done. I understand the impact. I'm clear on what it is you've delivered. You can move on. End with a brief, that's a brief summary. Would you like any more information? I advise people to do this because you give the interviewer an opportunity to opt in or opt out of more information. If I speak for 6 minutes, I can't give the interviewer back 3 or 4 minutes. If I speak for a couple of minutes, I can say, would you like any more? Give them the opportunity to, yeah, actually, I do want to ask you more. Or actually, no, Jace, you've covered it. I'm good for the moment. Thank you. Do you see people doing similar things, Emma?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that with asking for, like it's always better to ask if they want more information rather than trying to cram everything in.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We've got some interesting questions here. Like we've got someone asked that, that they could see that person was reading off notes. Is it okay to take notes in to an interview, Jason?
There are different, look, thanks for the question. I think it's a great question. And there are different schools of thought, and people are going to prefer different ways of approaching this. My own advice is, yes, it is okay to take notes into an interview with you. Certainly questions that you want to ask in an interview, certainly notes that help you to recall important stories. I say this, when you go into an interview and you turn up with interview notes and prompts and those kinds of things, the interviewer watching or talking to you will see that you've taken the time and effort to prepare. And they're going to be reading your notes upside down. And you're sending a good, I believe, you're sending a good subliminal message, which is, again, I'm prepared. I've come here ready. I want this job. I'm engaged. There are some that believe the alternative is true. I don't think reading from interview notes in the form of reading a pitch in an interview is the right thing to do. Absolutely not. You should have nailed that and practiced that before you've gone in. But taking notes into an interview, interviews are not exams. You can't rely on memory recall alone to describe your past 10 years or 15 years of experience. So my belief is, yes, take them in. Be wise in what you put on them, but use them as a guide and a prompt. Certainly don't read from them in an interview.
Absolutely.
Out of interest, and I've maybe just shot myself in the foot here. Out of interest, what's your advice? What's your stake on this, Emma?
In terms of notes,
yeah,
I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I would always take a notepad and a pen into an interview anyway, because there's going to be things that you want to write down. Like now, even online, a lot of interviewers may record the interview, and you can ask for the the transcript afterwards. It's totally fine, but I don't see anything wrong with taking notes into an interview at all.
Glad you said that.
Because we're humans. Again, it's authenticity as well. And as you said, it's not an exam. They're not trying to catch you out. An interviewer is not trying to catch you out. They're trying to understand you.
I wholeheartedly agree. Again, there are those that believe that the other side is right. The interview should be difficult and people should be put under pressure and they should be relying on memory recall. I don't think that's the way. I don't think you get anything out of the conversation other than alienation, and that doesn't get you any closer to the end goal.
No. And
Practice.
I think, yeah.
Sorry, go.
I agree. Well, one of the questions here, because you're not always guaranteed to have a good interviewer either, are you, Jason? And one of the questions here was, how would you suggest we take control of the narrative when the interviewer constantly interrupts when you're trying to answer a question or describe your career moves and they tend to inject themselves in? This often results in losing trail of thought, and a hit to overall confidence.
So to your first part, yes, interviewers are not always and in fact, in many cases, not often great at doing the job that we're trying to do here. You know, a lot of interviewers learn by osmosis. They learn from the person that they worked with, and if that person was not particularly a good interviewer, then chances are they're not going to be great. How do I take back control in an interview with somebody that is interjecting when I'm trying to respond? Probably in the same way that I would as an interviewer. I would use their name. So, hey, Carrie, or hey, Ben, you know, I appreciate your point. Thanks for that. I'd love to just share with you this detail because I think it's really important to the question you've just asked me. If you'll give me a second or two, I'll just round out my answer. So I think you can do it. I think you should do it. If you're constantly being tripped up and spoken over in an interview and interjected on, then maybe the interviewer that's interviewing is not the right interviewer for you, and maybe that's not the right place. But I think you should.
Yeah, because someone actually said, I think, you know, I always think of the interview as two-way because you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you, which is true.
And look, if you've tried the strategy that I've just suggested and it continues, you know, the person continues to interject and talk over you, then I would draw a conclusion that this is just not going to be the right place for me. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on that note taking as well, because a couple of people asked if it's okay to take notes, and someone had said that the last executive who hired her loved the notes that she'd made. She mentioned it when saying goodbye at the end of the interview, and she actually said thank you for preparing, because yeah, so many people come in underprepared.
Like I say, I love that. You know, I would always favor a candidate that would come in with a notepad, and I would look at their notes. What if
Yeah, you want them to take notes.
Yeah,
Start a job.
I want everybody to remember one thing, right? Interviewers want you to be a success. The person that you're interviewing with now, or that you are interviewing, they want you to succeed. The reason? They want to stop interviewing.
Yes.
They want to fill the role. So if they see that you've turned up ready, prepared, engaged, you've got notes, you've done the homework, they're going to favor you. It's going to work in your favor.
Yeah.
Practice. So practice your pitch, write it down. I get everybody I work with to write their pitch out, to voice record it, then to video record it and to send it to me. Then, if you want to go a step further, play it back on video and turn the sound off. And have a look at what you are seeing. What are you picking up from the person that's talking? Are they animated? Are they excited about their career? Does their body language signal the same kind of thing? And if it doesn't, then go back and practice again. But practicing your career pitch is really important to make sure that it is, it doesn't come across as robotic and over-engineered.
Good advice. And you can always get someone else to look at your video as well and critique it.
Absolutely, you should do.
Yep.
Record it, play it back, and refine it where necessary. And those are my tips on that section. CVs and LinkedIn. Is there anything else we need to answer before I move on? And how are we going?
We're sort of running like we've got sort of like 10 minutes until it's 1 o'clock. And I'd like to get through some of these questions. Do you want to run through the CV and LinkedIn, and then we can go through that?
Yeah, we'll bullet point them. You are 40 times more likely to receive opportunities through a LinkedIn platform if your LinkedIn profile is complete. Recruiters spend an average of 6 to 8 seconds. I was guilty of this. I would scan dozens of CVs on the bus on my way into work. You do not have much time to engage somebody when they look at your CV. Length, 3 pages. If you've got 15 years experience, 3 pages. Otherwise, 2 pages is enough.
Yep.
White space is your friend. Edit ruthlessly. Cut out the fluff. You don't need it. Include a snapshot. So I always encourage people to have a career summary, just a short table or a short form summary. Make it easy for somebody to skim. Quantify your wins. Numbers help people grasp scale. If you talk about the size of the organization that you've worked in, the budget you've held, the value that you've delivered in terms of impact, you help people grasp how big it was. Track your applications in any way. If you are applying for dozens and dozens of roles and you are not tracking your applications and you are not iterating based on what the data tells you, So in the past 30 applications, I've received no callbacks and no interviews. You are shooting yourself in the foot. If after 15 or 20 applications, you are not receiving any applications or any callbacks, you need to iterate. You need to change your approach. Ditch the grey LinkedIn recruitment, the LinkedIn banner. I see this so often, it does my head in. If you're a professional that's got the grey LinkedIn banner, get rid of it. Find something that meets with your passions and interests, and highlight that instead. Make sure that you have a good, professional, clean, smiling at the camera headshot, good lighting, not in a club, not at the racetrack, you know, not at a bar.
Sunglasses.
No, it's not sunglasses,
Mm-mm.
just professional, appropriate. Include a compelling headline, job title, and any relevant certifications or accreditations that you've got. Have a clean about section, and add skills. Your profile is searchable on LinkedIn. So if you are adding skills into your LinkedIn, if you are not adding skills to your LinkedIn profile, you are closing your shopfront window and people cannot find you.
Yeah.
I think that was the last one. Again,
Perfect.
I can't.
Request recommendations as well. They're always a good one, especially when you.
Social proof.
Yeah.
You know, ask for proof, ask for evidence from people that you've worked with of how good you are. Because I, as a recruiter, would always scan down to recommendations to see what other people have said about the person that I'm looking to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of questions. We've got about 16, so hopefully we can get through them all, and some of them might be answered with the other ones. From Aparna, Jason, I think that any guidance on managing exhaustion from job search. So it can be quite frustrating to receive no interview invites or receiving rejections from interviews. I think what you said before about tracking your job applications and reiterating each time is really important, but then also not letting it consume your whole day. Like, I think it's really important to look after yourself during that process and set aside maybe 1 or 2 hours in the morning if you can while you're job searching. What are your tips?
Look, unfortunately, I speak to lots of people that are in exactly this boat, and it's really tough. The market is bloody brutal at the moment, so I get it. I think your advice there is absolutely spot on. You know, take some time away to do stuff that does not involve you writing dozens and dozens of applications. But if you are doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same result, you've got to change it.
Yeah.
You know, and using webinars like this or other online forums or speaking to coaches, whether they be me or somebody else, to get some advice, just have somebody in your corner to bolster that confidence can be a really great way of getting the energy boost and the kick you need to go,
Yeah.
all right, let's go again. I'm on.
It can be just a little tweak.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you answer what's your salary expectations question when no range is provided and the variance between companies is so large? How do you answer this without getting ruled out? And they said, I typically approach it by saying, I understand each company has different REM levels. What budget are you targeting? Look, my advice, I think it's really important that you look at some salary data or talk to a few recruiters before you go in for the interview. If you're going into an organization where they've advertised directly and they haven't put the salary on there, I think it's really important. When you said before, Jason, how you go in confident when you're talking about those your salary expectations, because if they're paying $40,000 or $50,000 under what the market should be paying, then you don't really want to work there anyway.
Absolutely. So my advice is exactly the same. You need to go in, you need to benchmark, you need to go in knowing what your worth is, you know, so based on people that I've worked with that do a similar role, based on salary surveys that are out there, based on Glassdoor reviews, I know I am worth roughly this.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I've got some confidence that I'm going in at the right space. I would actually default to what the listener has asked and suggest in the first instance you ask, what budget have you set aside for this role? Just out of interest, where does it sit? And try and get an answer so you put yourself in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
If you don't, and quite often you don't, you
Yeah.
won't get an answer. If you don't, then you should know what your request is going to be. And my advice would be give a range. I'm looking for between X and X as a base salary. That's what I'd like to achieve, or that's where I'd like to be. And that's it. I finish with that soft full stop. that's what I'd like to achieve, or that's what I'd like to be. Big smile on my face, because it's very difficult to say no to somebody with a smile on my face. But then I'm out of the question. I'm out of the conversation. I've answered your question. It's over to you.
Yeah. And you can say, like, these are my salary expectations, and XYZ, this is the reason why. I've got 20 years experience in this space. This is the impact I can make. And you said that you're looking for this, and I can achieve that.
Yep.
And stop talking.
And stop talking.
Yeah.
Be comfortable in silence. Be comfortable in the silence.
Yeah. And then it sort of answered this other question as well regarding REM. So when asked, sometimes it's way above what the company has budgeted for. How can the candidate be aware of this? I think goes back to before, look, salary data, talk to a few recruiters and understand what's being paid in that their area. There's so many salary surveys out there now. And if, as you said, like if the company is paying so far under, then they're not, if they're lowballing like that, they're not going to appreciate it in the long term anyway.
No. And this is about knowing your worth, you know,
Yeah.
and comfortable. Whilst a lot of people are struggling and want a role, taking a role that's paying you $50,000 less than what you know you're worth, you know you're going to probably opt out in 3 to 6 months anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I would much advise that you spend more time looking for something that's going to pay you what you're worth than you take something that's paying you much less than that.
Okay. And then another one. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So someone's asked, do you recommend reaching out to the recruiter after an interview whereby no outcome has been communicated within a certain time frame? Yes. Call them. Get them to close the loop. Like it could be something ridiculous. Like they could be waiting for the line manager to come back to them. They could be, something might have paused along the way. Something might have happened. You don't know. Like, don't think disaster straight away, or don't think you don't have it. But I would definitely call that recruiter.
Yep, agreed.
What else have we got? I love these questions. So hi Jason, thanks for sharing some insights, really helpful. Can you advise on how to handle an interviewer who is simply put off by knowing that one does not have the local market experience, however, bringing in an extensive global experience to the table?
Yeah. Look, again, this is a tough one, and I'm sure, Emma, this is one that you see often.
Yep.
This is, again, for me, this is about going back to a really tight pitch, being able to really articulate your value, whether you've delivered that value here in Australia or another organization, being able to talk in stats, facts, and figures, and to describe your commercial value to the person that's interviewing you is super important, whether you are locally experienced or whether you are experienced from overseas. So for me, this would go back to being able to do that really, really well.
Yep, absolutely. Thoughts on t-shirts for interviews? Doesn't seem like showing up.
That's an interesting question. I
If
wonder
you don't think it's showing up, I think that like you go in, like one thing that we were always taught, and I'm old school, big agency. You always try and dress better than your interviewer.
Yeah.
Like just a little bit sharper. Like if you've got an organization and t-shirt for interview in an IT company where they're wearing thongs is absolutely acceptable. But if you're going into professional services or, depending on the industry, like you've just got to dress a little bit better.
I think the context, so knowing the context of the environment you're going into, like you've just said, is super important. And if it's a plain V-neck white or black t-shirt, and I'm going into a, technology company or a small software firm, whatever it is, that's okay. That's appropriate.
Yep.
I think most people have ditched ties. I would like to think ties and cufflinks. I would like to think they are gone. The analogy I use is, as you are going out to a fancy meal with your partner or whoever it be, you walk out of the door, you take a glance in the mirror, as you look at yourself and think, yeah, that's okay, I look good. That should be how you walk into an interview. If you don't get that sense, then you've probably not done enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, where is it? Oh, this is a good one. So assuming most people, most of the time, get the basics right, are prepared and have a good work history and responses, Are there any suggestions on really shining to move past good to excellent and get the offer? I think that like in relation to this, going back to the pitch and being able to really quantify your impact is really important. I don't know, what do you think, Jason?
I think it's an excellent bloody question, first and foremost. And I would agree. I would also just add that part that we talked about where you're asking intelligent questions. That's your moment to really shine. That's your moment to really, really stand out. You know, you can do so much in those closing minutes of an interview to elevate yourself above the other 3 or 4 other people that are interviewing, because you're just asking really, really smart questions and you're demonstrating you've done so much work and research in the background before getting to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, oh, this is a good one. So what if you do end up waffling? So maybe not answering the question as well as you could because you haven't taken that thinking time, as we were talking about before. Is there any hope for recovery? I say yes, 100%. Like if you've realized and you've said, I'm so sorry, I've gone off track there, let me start again. Or like getting to the next question and saying, look, I really feel like I didn't answer that question the best way. Can you give me a second to think about this next question and then go into it?
I say yes too.
Yeah.
Human first. I'm an optimist, right? I would like to think that most people will give another person a second chance, you know, and especially if you can acknowledge it, and if you can, and if you can not only acknowledge it but laugh at it,
Yeah.
then
Shows you willing to grow too.
it makes it all acceptable. Hey, you know what? I've really stuffed up there. I'm sorry. Give me a second. Let me start again. Of course, absolutely start again.
Yeah.
You've just impressed the socks off of me.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one, if the role that I want to move to is not the same as I've had previously, but have had experience, what is the best way to not be put back into a job title or experience box? I think that comes down to that preparation again and understanding the role that you're moving into and pulling that experience from the roles that you've had previously. I think that if you've had like that experience, like it doesn't matter if you've been, I don't know, say like head of payroll for a really long time and you're trying to move into, say, an industrial relations role where you're looking at enterprise agreements and the award, etc. You would have had a lot of that exposure in your previous roles, and then you can talk about that exposure and what you did with awards, etc., and then talk about the professional development you've done to move you into more of a specialized industrial relations space. I know that's just one area of example. What do you think, Jason?
The professional development side thing, I think is really important. You must be able to talk to the things that you are already doing in order to upskill yourself in the area of the role that you want to move into. But it also is that expectation thing that we talked about, aligning of expectation. You need to be really clear on what it is you want to do and what you do not want to do when stepping into the organization and interviewing for a role.
Yeah. And so in terms of like one person said that they had an interview recently and unfortunately was not successful for the role. The recruitment agency didn't provide any feedback to me after the interview, which I found strange. Have others been in the same situation? I would say yes. And I would definitely see if you can garnish some feedback. Look, sometimes it does come to the end and like they do just pick one person over the other and there isn't any specific feedback that we can give. Like, so we do, like as a recruiter, it's really important to me to try and get that feedback so you can improve for next time. I would definitely ask for it. What do you think, Jason?
Look, definitely ask for it. There's this age-old saying, which is no news is good news. I think that's bullshit. I think no news is just no news, you know, and so we should be asking, we should be prompting our recruiter to give us some feedback, give me something that can help me. Unfortunately, we're in a time where it's such a competitive space that you're just not always going to get that. So
Yeah.
ask, but I would probably ask without an expectation that it's going to happen. And again, I would iterate where I think I need to. I would learn where I think I need to, and I'll try and polish my presence and approach so that I win the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then is it okay to include in the pitch comparison against other shortlisted candidates? what you will probably have and unique versus other potential applicants. I don't understand. I think it's hard to actually know who the other potential applicants will be.
I think I understand what your person is saying, that they're asking about how they sell themselves in that pitch to outweigh the competition. I think that's what it is.
Mm,
For me, your pitch, your career summary pitch, is really about your background and your experience. It's your opportunity to lay a platform for another discussion that allows you to talk about your differentiators and why you're so great. So for me, in that summary, we're talking about background, we're talking about experience, we're talking about the great things you're doing. I'm not selling there. I'm laying a platform for what's going to follow.
yeah.
Hope that's the question I'm answering. And if I'm not, please ping me on LinkedIn and I'll try very, very hard to answer more succinctly.
Yeah. Now I'm just answering one of these here. There's a few more, like in terms of, we've done that one. Is there anything else? Hang on. With so much emphasis on tailoring CVs to each role, how can we ensure our LinkedIn profile remains aligned and relevant when applying for multiple opportunities? I think in this case, yes, like you do tailor CVs and obviously you have your keywords in there, but it should still match. Like it won't be that far different from your LinkedIn profile. And it's not like your LinkedIn profile should be a replica of your CV anyway. What do you think, Jason?
Look, I agree. I think consistency across your CV and LinkedIn is important. Consistency, not a complete replica. But I think that summary, so the verbal summary, the about section, and the summary in your CV can all be roughly the same thing, using similar language to describe the things that we've done, the experience that we have. But yeah, I get it. Nuancing your CV for each role is really, really tough. And is just what the market demands at the moment. But LinkedIn, your LinkedIn should be engaging, it should be interesting. You're not going to change it every time you change your CV. That would be ludicrous.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. Okay. I think there was one question that I'm not sure about this one, but what's your take on verifying your personal LinkedIn profile? I'm not comfortable giving my personal data such as passport, etc. to LinkedIn. Is there value in verifying? I've been seeing a little bit about this week, actually. It's funny that question came up today. There was someone that had their it's like the Instagram verification as well, but there had been people that had their identity stolen. And so it depends on what you're doing. I think it depends on what you're doing on LinkedIn as well. Like if you've got a lot of people contacting you all the time and you're supposed to be a trusted voice in, or a thought leader, then I think the verification, and it's done by a third party. But I think it's a personal preference. Like at the end of the day, I don't know, Jason, what do you think?
I haven't verified my LinkedIn profile, but for similar reasons as to the person asking the question.
Yeah,
I think
it's really
for
personal.
me, it's personal preference. For me, it doesn't. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I don't see how it's necessary or how it's going to necessarily help. And so, for now, I've avoided. But I'm willing to be educated.
Otherwise,
I'm willing to be educated. Otherwise, of course, you've
it's
got to be
not going to
curious.
make a difference to people finding you.
Not at all.
No.
Or being willing to engage or not engage with you.
Yeah. And is there such a thing as too many skills on LinkedIn? No.
You can have up to 50. Is it more?
I thought it was 100.
I don't think there's something you can have as many skills on LinkedIn. There are skills that you actually possess.
Yeah,
Obviously.
absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, listing your skills on LinkedIn, I think, is really fun.
Yeah.
Really important. As I said, it makes you findable in searches
Yeah.
and
And when people verify them too, like you come up in the top of searches for recruiters. Now another question, if you're keen to know about parental leave benefits but don't want to ask it blatantly, is there a way to get this information? I mean, I've had people ask in the initial interview and and it's no problem. I guess like it depends because we work with HR, and obviously it's not, you know, there shouldn't be any discrimination around that. I think that you can definitely ask it, and if they're really put off by that, then is it the right place to work? I don't like, that's how I feel.
So Glassdoor is a place in which I think this kind of information can be housed. Using your network to find other people that work in the organization that can probably give you that answer to that question is also a good thing.
Yep.
Understanding, as I said, the balance of power that you've got as an interviewee as you're moving through the process will change. From your first interview to your second and final interview, the power that you have will change. And so I would be asking it at the right stage of interview, when a point when I've got some more parity. So as I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot. It's like asking the question of, you know, what are the standard working hours in your first interview? You're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I understand when is the right point for me, I think.
Saying that's a really great question, gives you thinking time. Also signals to the interview that you're thinking about the question and want to give it a considered response. Absolutely agree. There's a thank you for organizing this webinar. And unfortunately, I think this person has come through anonymous, and understand that people have had some difficult times with recruiters, because they've said many recruiters in Australia have a short-term memory and have treated many job seekers quite poorly. There are some amazing recruiters, but they're getting a bad name from the majority. And unfortunately, it's been part of our industry for a long time, hasn't it, Jason?
Look, it really has, and I say this often, and I truly believe it. It doesn't take much as a recruiter to stand head and shoulders above your competitors. You know, applying a process, caring, showing some empathy. That call on a Friday afternoon where you say to your candidate, I actually don't have any news, but I promise you feedback before the end of the week, and I'm just letting you know that I haven't forgotten you. That is gold dust to people. So and I know that you do that fantastically well, Emma.
No, and like, I am sorry. I am truly sorry if I drop the ball anywhere. I swear to God, it's not intentional. And we've put systems in place to make sure that we don't, but sometimes like little things fall through, and it does hurt. It hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be that person.
It is tough.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Jason. Now, if anyone wants to connect with Jason, it's Jason Ajay from Interview Fit on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to him, and there will be a copy of this recording afterwards, so you can always access it, go back, replay things to understand how to do things better. But then we're always here to answer your questions as well. So thank you so much for today, Jason. We really appreciate you.
Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed it. I hope that the people watching have taken some practical, useful tips that they can actually apply in their search. And thanks so much for spending your hour on lunch, letting me wax lyrical about something that I really love and I'm super passionate about.
I love that. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody.
Bye all.